Today I'd like to give a discourse on the 24 code. This is something that I've been working with for the last 4 decades, and over the years I've had a fascination with what we call the living mathematics of nature. And I realized that as I was working with the Fibonacci sequence, which is in everything, it's in pine cones, sunflowers, I realized that there was a hidden or underpinning 24 code that repeats infinitely. So I wrote 10 books just on the 24 phi code, the golden ratio. So 24 started appearing everywhere. So the reason why this chart highlights the number 24 is that after independently discovering the infinitely repeating 24 code, I realized that 24 was popping up everywhere. And in my files over there, I've got huge folders just full on every reference to the number 24. So today I thought I would indulge with sharing some of the pertinent points all about the number 24. So while we're talking about the phi code, what I've done here, so I wanted to create this wheel, this mandala, to look like an eye, and that it represents highly encoded information. So if you start from the top here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got just the natural sequence. It's called serial consecutive numbers, 1 to 24. And then at the outer limit, we've got the Greek alphabet. So the Greek alphabet has 24 letters, which is interesting. We've got alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon. And if you go around, you look at the P sound. Well, the P sound is pi, P-I, there's pi. But the golden ratio, phi, was like the F sound. So it's interesting that some of the most sacred transcendental numbers that we use in mathematics are all originated in the ancient Greek Macedonian alphabet. Yeah, so that's the wheel of 24. So what I've done is I've embedded the infinite repeating 24 code. So this blue ring here is actually this diagram here, where I've got 108. So you're going to say, what's the connection to 24 and 108? Well, when we reduce the Fibonacci numbers, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, so we keep adding 5 and 8 is 13, 8 and 13 is 21, 21 and 34 is 55. That goes to infinity, but we don't understand infinity. So when we subtract the number 9 from every one of those numbers, we look at the remainder, and what we get is this 24. So these single digits, I've circularized them, but I've done them as 2 rows of 12. And we see that everything adds up to 999. All the opposite pairs add up to 999. So 9 is the undercurrent for all sacred geometry. And what I also realized is that I decided to plot these 24 numbers. On a graph paper. So if I started from here, and the rule was I'm going to turn clockwise each time. I'm going to go like 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. And I'm following those numbers which are written here. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 4, 3, 7, 1, 8, 9. And what happens is the journey of the phi code, the 108 code, it all goes back to itself. So where it starts, it finishes. It's a path of re-entry. And I found that really fascinating, because what's 24 all about? It's about time codes. So if we're going to say that these are about time codes, have a look at what happens when we take away the number 10. When we take away the number 10 from the Fibonacci numbers, we get a 60 code, an infinitely repeating 60 code. So there's the Fibonacci numbers, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. But when we get to 13, we look at the last digit. And then 21, we put a 1. 34, we put the 4, because we're just looking at the final digit. So that repeats every 60. So if I started here and followed those 60 numbers in order, and I'm going 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 5, 8, 8, 4, 4, 3, 1. When I follow that all the way to the last digit, it comes back to itself. It does a journey. So I found that really fascinating, that my journey with the Fibonacci sequence not only revealed a 24 code, but a 60 code. And these are the numbers of time that we inherited from the Sumerians and the Babylonians. So I call that the 108 code, Shri 108. It's holy to the Hindus. And I've also written a whole encyclopedia on the number 108. And I realized that the numbers 24 and 108 are all connected. So that's the main thing. I just wanted to make that the highlight of the 24 code. But if you look at the center of this mandala, it's not really a mandala, is a three-dimensional object. So this is actually a mandala, it's 3D. But when we look at the 2D version of it, it's called the yantra. So this is actually a yantra, or the singular is called yantram. So when we look at these rings of 24, we see that there's another important occurrence of 24, and it's called the prime numbers of the universe. So there's a prime number across here. So I'm going to write the numbers 1, 2, 3. So this inner ring is the numbers from 1 to 24. And then it jumps to the next ring, and I do another 24. You've got 25, 26, 27, 28. So we've got infinite rings of 24, because what we're looking for is patterning. This is all about, this is the universal language of shape and pattern recognition. And we've been told at university that there's no such pattern or symmetry in the prime numbers, but there is. So what there is it's a cross, and you can see that I've highlighted 8 rays. So to show you that a little bit better, I drew it when I did a section on the art of number. So I'm taking this little ring of 24 primes, but now I've done it as a full chart, and you can see that the distribution of primes is highly intelligent and significant, and it actually makes, so all the prime numbers that I've highlighted in pink, like 5, 29, 53, 101, 149, all these numbers lie on these 8 rays. And there's things called twin primes, like 137 and 139. There's people like myself who've spent their whole life just investigating primes, but it all goes back to the wheel of 24. If we didn't chart the numbers from 1 to 24 in rings, we wouldn't see this fourth dimensional prime number cross. And it's what the Queen wears on her crown. The Queen of England and her mother, the Queen Mary, they all wore this prime number cross here on their crown. It's a royal insignia. So 24 is part of the mysteries, what I call the codes of creation. Okay, so we've looked at, so that you can see that that's dominated the heart of this chart. We can also look at things like magic squares, like how do I grab a magic square of 3 by 3 to all add up to 24? So when we look at a magic square like this, we know it all adds up to 15, 1 to 9. All the columns, rows, diagonal add up to 15. But if I was to, and what's important is, if I started here where number 1 is and I put number 4 and I went 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 12, suddenly everything adds up to 24. But to get that 24 magic square having a magic sum or constant of 24, we have to follow the order of these numbers. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. By following that exact order, but with the number 4 at the top, suddenly we've got a yantra that all adds up to 24. So that's an interesting thing. There's a bit of number theory. Number theory is saying we look at the magical properties of numbers. So there's a thing called 4 factorial. Factorial means 4 factorial would mean 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 actually equals 24. So that means if I had 4 colors like red, orange, yellow, blue, say they were on cards, how many different permutations can I arrange the order, like red, orange, yellow, blue? I can swap them around. There'll be 24 variations. So 24 is called the factorial number. They use it a lot in industries. So that's there's a bit more of number theory going on here. But what I wanted to show you, just a recent research that I've done, is that they're saying now, scientists are saying that we originally had 24 chromosomes. We all know that we have 23, but something happened a million years ago where 2 chromosomes fused together, and they studied under the microscope that the end parts of the chromosomes, called the telomeres, fused together. So we originally can claim, there's a big scientific research going on, we've got 24 chromosomes, which makes sense that this magical number is where our genetic information was all stored, because it's all about a shape stores the memory. So we know that gorillas have 24 chromosomes, orangutans. So the early primates all had 24 chromosomes. So now they're saying that we also had 24. So I'm doing a massive research on that, because as I do research, the number 24 keeps popping up. But obviously we have to validate that. I'd like to look at some of the shapes. I want to move into there's a whole section here just on all the shapes, which I'll get into. But before I do that, while I'm on number theory, there's something special about 27. So to understand why 27 and 24 are related, we have to go down here and look at what's called the mystical squaring of the circle. So imagine you've got a chessboard, a square here, it's 8 by 8 square. Now if I had around that a 9 by 9 graph paper, and I'm looking at the ratio from 8 by 8 to 9, what happens is that the ratio of 8 to 9 suddenly squares the circle, which means the perimeter of that square suddenly equals the circumference of that circle. So that ratio of 8 to 9 is an approximation to called the golden ratio. And that's really important because the square is the earth and the circle is spirit. So the only way to make heaven and earth equal is through a subharmonic of the golden ratio. So what that means is, if the diameter of the square here from there to there is 1, how much do we increase this distance of 1 to hit the circle, right? And the distance is 1.27, and that distance from 1 to 1.27 is called the square root of phi. It's called the golden root, which means 1.27 times 1.27 equals phi, which is 1.61. It's the golden measure. So when we bend our arm, for example, if this is 1, the arm doesn't bend at 0.5, it bends at 0.618, and that's called the reciprocal of phi. So we are the living mathematics of nature, and the integer that represents all this mysticism is the number 24. So there's an intimate relationship between 24 and 27. So I'm going to shift over to another ring here. If we take the number 27 and keep doubling it, we get 27, 54, 108, 216, 432, 864. What happens is all the numbers of the planetary distances and diameters, all the numbers of the universe start appearing. They're called harmonic numbers. They all add up to 9. But if you notice, as this doubling sequence of 27 ink goes forever, we notice that 27 is 3 cubed, 216 is 6 cubed, 1728 is 12 cubed, and as we keep going to 13,824, that happens to be 24 cubed. So we've got another underpinning cubic sequence running underneath the doubling sequence of 27. So again, that's a bit of number theory, but it goes forever. And what happens is we start embedding sequences within sequences, but what connects it all is the number 24. Okay, so that's the number theory. I want to now look at I've got all these geometric shapes here, so I just want to shift a little bit more into the Platonic solid. So when we look at, say, the tetrahedron, there was a master who died in 1983, Buckminster Fuller, and he had like X-ray eyes, and he said that the tetrahedron is more potent than the cube, because if you sit on a box or a cube, it can fall, whereas this is more stable. This is the shape of pollen and fossils, and so inside of this is 24 symmetries, and inside of that again is 24 modules called quanta. So Buckminster Fuller was able to go right into the tetrahedron and realize that there's 24 compartments, which has great use in quantum theory. And the only thing about the tetra is that there's no opposing vertices, like this doesn't oppose another one, and it doesn't actually pack space. It can only pack space if we use the octahedron. So tetra and octa together can pack space. So I just wanted to show you a picture of him because he's been one of my mentors. So Buckminster Fuller had a quote: "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." So I never met Bucky, that's his name. But this is a typical thing of what he did. He worked with a thing called synergetics, and he wrote volumes. And when you squint and stare inside the volume of the tetrahedron, we see that there's 24 quanta, or 24 parts, and that's the octahedron. But just wanted you to just recognize that he had done all this original work before anyone else. So that's the tetrahedron, and now I want to go to the cube. The fourth dimension of the cube is called the hypercube. So if you could visualize inside this cube that there's another cube inside of it. So to understand that, there's a diagram here It's called the Tesseract. There are whole movies done about the Tesseract, which was like there was a galactic war fighting over whoever owned this magical box, the cube within the cube, which is a fractal. They could rule the universe because it's a power source. And so what it also has 24 two-dimensional faces, and it's based on there's 8 lots of 3-dimensional hyperplanes. So it's hard to visualize the 4th dimension, but that's called the Tesseract. I just wanted to imprint that somehow even this 4th dimensional polytype goes back to the number 24. And then we have another thing. This is more the work with Bucky. Bucky did a lot of work with the Catalan. A Catalan is not a platonic solid. There's 13 Archimedeans. So an Archimedean solid is, say, something like this. It's got mixed faces, so triangles and squares. Whereas what's inside of this cube octahedron, if Magic Spider said, I'm going to go in and join these 6 squares and 8 triangles, there's another shape in there. It happens to be this. So these are called a dual or a pair. They're called conjugal. Conjugal means marriage. So these two are married forever. So when the shape that exists inside the Archimedean is called a Catalan. So this Catalan solid, how does this relate to the number 24? So Bucky did some research on this. So he had a system of looking at the volume of this. So to work out the volume of this shape, he had a very intelligent way of saying, we're going to look at a tetrahedron, but we're going to subdivide it into 4 tetras on the base. So this is called a 4-frequency tetrahedron. So Bucky invented this thing called the 64 tetrahedron grid. There's been other people copying this 64 grid, but Bucky was the original pioneer. So he said that if this tetrahedron has a volume of 1, then this orange octahedron here is 4. This square-based pyramid is 2, and this is a volume of 8. But inside this cube octahedron here in the middle, this shape is what's in the middle. That was 20. So by understanding that the TV or tetravolume is 1, he calculated that the volume of this is 24. So the cube, the rhombic dodecahedron as a tetravolume, which was such an intelligent way of understanding shapes and their volumes, had a TV or tetravolume of 24. And this happens to be the shape of a crystal that we're familiar with called garnet crystal. Yes, I just wanted to mention that one there. And I've actually got it over here. I sort of showed you that if you take one of these TV volumes as 1, well, there's 20 of these fit inside of that. Yeah, so not many people, this is all original work by Bucky. Not many people have talked about that. Then we've got another, so going back to the cube octahedron. So I showed you this image before. We know it's got 24, the number 24 is embedded in there. To understand that, we have to look at it in another way. So here's the cube octahedron. Bucky also called this the vector equilibrium. So Bucky was the one that fully described this. So when you're able to squash this shape, it would condense into the 5 platonic solids. It was called the jitterbug. So inside here where I'm holding, there's a radius. It's called a radial. So there's 12 radials, and there's also 12 edges on the outside. So this actually has 24 edges. But what's also amazing is that I'm putting my finger inside here. There's a triangle, and all these triangles, there's 24 triangle planes that all go to the center. It's the only known shape in the universe where the inside radial is the same as the outside. No other shape can do that. So if I picked up this shape here, this length here that I'm holding is different than the distance from the center to the vertex there. They're different. So this was purely symmetrical. And so again, Buckminster Fuller, credit to Bucky. This is the diagram here. So to give these a name, I would call this 3434. That's my name for it, because at any vertex here, that point, we can see triangle, square, 3434. So I wanted to show you another Archimedean. So Archimedean, like I said, have mixed faces. So this diagram here, I call it 466. So it does have a special name. It's an octahedron. So when you slice or truncate this octahedron, it slices and it becomes a truncated octahedron. So here it is. So you can imagine that if you extended all these points, if you extrapolated all these edges, it'll form a big octa. But this also has 24 points or vertices. So if I was to touch all these edges, there's 24 vertices. And just the other day, I was just working with some students and some children, actually. Children respond highly to this. I was working with some star kids, and we said, let's measure the distance of that rectangle. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a yellow string there and a yellow string there. But that rectangle, if this distance is 1, how long is that longer edge? And it happens to be 1.618 squared. It's called the golden ratio squared. So if this is 1, the longer length is 2.618, because the golden ratio squared is 2.618. So that's that. So you can see that pretty much. That's why I say that shape stores memory. But what we're seeing in today's lecture is that what connects all these various geometries is the number 24. And as you can see, we could actually write a whole book. There's actually a whole book of knowledge just encoded in the number 24. But like I said before, it all started with the discovery that what's hidden inside the Fibonacci sequence was the number 24. So then most people are familiar with the, people call it the star tetrahedron. Leonardo da Vinci called this one the stellar octangular. Octangular is because it's got 8 vertices. But how many edges does it have? 24. So this is again another geometrical expression of the anointed number 24. And there's also 24 triangles. So if this tetrahedron here has got 3 sides there, and there's 8 of them, so 3 8s are 24. So some people call this the Merkaba or Merkava, and it's basically an emblem of the spiritual light vehicle that allows us to travel through the dimensions or the many worlds. So we've looked at all of these. We've looked at the squaring of the circle. We've pretty much covered all this information. So there is another little number theory that I didn't show you. There's this little diagram here. It's actually like a square-based pyramid. So if you could look at that diagram there, if you were to cut the octahedron in half and just look at the top half, it is like a pyramid. It's not the Egyptian pyramid. The Egyptian pyramid's got a different angle. This is a 52 degrees, which relates to the water molecule angle. But this one here is where every length, the base, if that's 1, the side is 1. So everything is about 1, 1, 1. So if we were to look at the square-based pyramid, some of the greatest mathematicians 200 years ago, like Euler, they posed problems amongst themselves. We're going back hundreds of years now. So Euler, who's like one of the greatest mathematicians, like an Einstein, they wanted to know, is there a square number that if you... So imagine this was the base of this pyramid. Let's say we had 70 marbles along there, 70 marbles. So 70 squared, so 70 squared. So 70 times 70, you would need 4,900 marbles, right? So can we take those 4,900 marbles, or 70 squared, so that when we keep stacking 24 squared, 23 squared, 22 squared, up to this point, so it's like saying we're going to add all the square numbers. 1 squared plus 2 squared plus 3 squared plus 4 squared. So can you imagine you can keep stacking them and make this pyramid? Well, it works out that the only number in the universe that can be squared and form a square-based pyramid is 24 squared. Is the sum of the 24 planes, 1 cubed, 1 squared plus 2 squared plus 3 squared up to 24 squared equals that the base squared. So I made a little error there. Can I start that again, or just correct myself? When I said 70 squared, that's not right. It was meant to be 24 squared. So imagine this is like a sponge cake with 24 layers. So imagine there's 24 marbles there. So 24 squared is 576. And then we stack on top of that 23 squared, then 22 squared, all the way up to 5 squared, 4 squared, and they're all stuck in, right, like that. It works out that the sum, the sigma, which is one of the Greek letters for S, is like sigma. The sigma of 1 cubed plus 2 cubed plus 3 cubed up to 24 cubed all adds up to 4,900. And so if we took all these layers of the sponge cake and spread them out on the table, they would actually constitute and form a big square, and it's called 70 square. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is the 24, those sums based on 24 is the only number in the universe that can do that. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is that I was just watching some of the quantum physicists in Glasgow. It's really amazing with YouTube. We can watch all these amazing lectures on YouTube. So I can sit down, and this professor was talking about exactly what I just talked about, the sums of 1 cubed, 1 squared, 2 squared up to 24. And it happens to be the key to what's called string theory and bosons and quantum energy. It was all based on the 24 dimensions plus 2 was the 26 dimensions. It got so cosmic that I couldn't believe this was just a simple number theory adding up the marbles, and yet it was the key to the next level of physics that the planet is entering now, because string theory is all about like galactic wormholes going beyond this world into others, and it's all based on the number 24, and that blew me out. So part of this journey is why I research and collect all this knowledge, is that I actually enjoy following like the breadcrumbs, and just not knowing where this information is going to go. So I'm still on a path of discovery. So for example, in my spare time, I'm going to take those 24 Fibonacci numbers, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 4, 3, 7, 1, 8, 9. That ring of 24 here. What if we turned it into an aerial? What if this became a future device for free energy? It's like an antenna, because our DNA is actually is like, we call it the DNA radio. It's actually an antenna. But if we copy and comprehend the living mathematics of nature, we can turn it into physical devices. So that's one of my most important researches that I'm doing now. And just to conclude, because a lot of people are going to say, can you put all this information together? Well, I'm putting out a harmonic stairway. It's a dictionary of all this information. So I might have 100 references to 24. So I've put it all into an encyclopedia. So I've just typed up a few notes just to show that what else is there about the number 24. You could say that 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9, if you add up the odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, 9, that's 24. In Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, they divided it into 24 sections because there's 24 Greek letters of the alphabet. When we look at cinema, there's 24 frames per second. So you can see that I could just go on and on. There's so much information, like a backgammon board. How many points on the backgammon board? 24. How many holes in this game called Nine Men's Morris? 24. So you can see why I've got so much information. In Indian, the Jainism, there was 24 Buddhas, like a Buddha. They were called the Tirthankaras. So there were over the last 50,000 years, we had 24 Buddhas or masters, and the last one just died when Mahavir died at the time of Buddha. So there was always 24 masters. And then we look at the Indian flag. How many? It's a wheel, like a bicycle wheel, but how many spokes? So the Indian flag has 24. And then you can go into the scriptures where in the book of Revelation, there was surrounding the throne were 24 other thrones, and seated on them were the 24 elders. So just wanted to let you know that this is just the beginning of an incredible journey, and just by following the symmetry and the patterns, because my whole life is based on pattern recognition, I believe that when we put it all together and make it coherent, we're able to share this knowledge and use it for developing better industries, better homes, better inventions, better technology. So the point of this lecture is to say that as we teach this to our younger students, they're going to work with this 24 code and take it to the next level of self-awareness. Thank you for your time.